Oh, hello everyone. It is 11:21 a.m. and I wanted to make a video. I don't have a lot of time before I have to head out the door. Um, I did want to talk about my personal belief that Saddam Hussein is still alive, and not only that, but he helped orchestrate the war in Iraq. I could definitely go into more detail in a further video, because the way they were making jokes about him, particularly on South Park, this would have been the early 2000s, when they made Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and his various appearances in South Park episodes. In particular, the Not Without My Anus episode, a very funny South Park episode. Even though it was about Terrence and Phillip, but it's the guys from South Park. So it's my belief he's alive, and the thing is, this is a rumor that's not particularly prominent on the internet. You get all kinds of ones about Osama bin Laden still being alive, and you get ones with George Bush when he's got a Middle Eastern style beard and thing on his head, saying, well, what do you do with Osama bin Laden's body? Well, of course, you go out to sea and don't record it and dispose of the body so no one sees it, of course. So there is some rumor that Osama bin Laden is alive. I've even heard this stupid one of Barack Obama being Osama bin Laden. And that, of course, is absolutely ridiculous. Like, the very concept of it is just stupid. Plastic surgery, I admit, has gone a long way. And there are sick, twisted individuals that really want to alter their faces and their complexion and all that to match that of whomever they want to do it for. But the idea of Barack Obama shifting his appearance from Osama bin Laden is just beyond absurd. Osama bin Laden's a lot older than Barack Obama, and it's just a physical impossibility. Plastic surgery, come a long way, but it may never go that far where you can alter a face that much and have it look natural. Like, I've seen Kim Kardashian wannabes try to emulate Kim Kardashian's face, and they look nothing like her. They look fake. They almost look like robots with plastic rubber skin put on. Like that music video I saw a long time ago of a robot peeling off its robotic skin and things like that. I don't remember the band. If somebody remembers that music video, it's basically this cyborg or this robot fucking yanking off its rubber skin off its face. If you remember it, put it in the comment section. I don't. Long time ago I saw it. Don't remember the band. Don't remember even what the song sounded like. All I remember is that robot tearing off its flesh. But anyway, that's getting off topic. I wanted to talk about Saddam Hussein and why I believe he's still alive. The thing is, these things like ISIS and other terrorist organizations, they don't just pop up out of nowhere. They never do. Things happen slowly in the Middle East. Very slowly. So, what I'm saying is, these militant groups, these rebels, these terrorists, were coming about for a long time. I have reason to believe that Saddam Hussein detected this within his own country. He noted that there is no way he could keep his government in power. Saddam Hussein was a brutal dictator. There's no getting around it. He did bad things like most dictators do. But he had a military industrial complex of his own to secure his power. But every military industrial complex in the world has its vulnerabilities. And so did this Saddam Hussein's government of Iraq. These groups were going to come in anyway. There are a lot of memes and pictures out there saying, Saddam Hussein suppressed and had it under control these terrorist organizations, ISIS, and all those other guys. And for the time being, he may have. But to say he would always be able to do that would be a gross understatement. I mean, the thing is, the government of Iraq, Uday Hussein, his son, was not fit to rule a country. He's a good henchman, but he wasn't fit to rule a country. And as soon as Saddam Hussein died, and he was getting older, I mean, he still had plenty of years left in him, probably. But as soon as he died, there would be a power vacuum. And then that's when these terrorist organizations would have popped up anyway. With his police state mentality, he was able to suppress them. But as I said, there's always vulnerabilities in that sort of industrial military complex sort of ideology. Things slip by, they don't know everything, they get distracted by other things, they're doing this and that. I mean, they're next door neighbors to Iran, and Iran hates their guts, and all this other sort of stuff. They needed the Americans straight into Iraq. They needed them to put a military base right into Iraq. And you go, well, why? Well, it's because the Iranian military capability was getting so much stronger than the Iraqi one. It was growing faster and stronger than theirs. And they hate each other. They fought a big, long, bloody war over each other. And it was no secret that the Americans were more on the Iraqi side than they were with the Iranians. They still are to this day. So you'd go, well, why didn't, if they weren't trying to create some sort of confusion politics where you're not sure what's going on, why didn't they just invite the Americans in and therefore save the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Iraqi civilians? Well, the thing is, with the propaganda machine that was going on over there, certain interests that knew certain things, and ISIS groups forming to take positions of power, inviting the Americans in was just not an option. There would be too much chaos, too much... it just wouldn't work. So they had to create the pretext for the Americans invading, which everyone blames Bush and Tony Blair for making up, that they had weapons of mass destruction. But the thing is, even though weapons of mass destruction, pretty easy, simple 3 words to know, they're weapons, and they cause mass destruction. Pretty simple, but people don't understand the concept even still. I haven't Googled and dictionaried weapons of mass destruction and what it means, but I guarantee you it's got a stupid answer for it. You don't know exactly what it is, in the sense that weapons of mass destruction exist. They have been found. The ones in Iraq that Bush said were there, they may or may not have found them. Maybe the Americans did find them and then turned around and pretended that they didn't exist. Did you ever think about that? I bet not. I bet you didn't even think about that. I think you just thought the Americans made up that excuse so that they could invade Iraq and steal whatever gold, whatever oil they could, and whatever relics from history they could as well, because those are worth a lot of money too. And it's like collecting treasure. You want it all. And that's the simple answer. And the thing is, that's propaganda. That's what they wanted people to believe. They wanted people to believe that George Bush was an evil bastard, and he is, but not in the same sense that other people think. Like, they think he intentionally gave us a stupid lie so that he could invade a country for a stupid reason, and people eat it up. They love that stuff. They're content. They feel intellectually stimulated. They can't be bothered to think anything else, because that's what seems logical to them. That's what they want to believe as well. They're predisposed to wanting to believe that. They don't want to... It's like... there's a little truth of information in the middle, and an outer shell of lies, and an outer shell of lies. People have broken through the first outer shell of lies, but they're still in the second outer shell of lies. You ain't got to the truth yet. The truth is way more complicated than you. More complicated than that, I mean. You're not going to be able to just smoke a doobie and go, George Bush is the evil man. He lied about weapons of mass destruction. I mean, it's not like those kind of things exist in the world. It's not like Iraq was in the Middle East where we don't have security border checks and all this other shit to stop people from bringing shit over the border. It's not like China could possibly get past one country and another country and another country and another country to get to Iraq. It's not like that's possible or anything. A crock of shit. Of course it's possible. And as I watched from one documentary, to build a nuclear device, all it takes is a grapefruit size of uranium. And the thing is, the North Koreans possess this. The Chinese I would think, are less likely to be selling this, although they definitely will, just to cause mayhem and shit. But they have a bit more money than the North Koreans. The North Koreans are hungry for money. They really need it. And one resource they have is uranium. So, as I've seen from other documentaries, and this is palatable to me, this is believable, they'll sell to any person, any government organization that are offering a reasonable deal for it. And how hard is it to throw in technological plans? You could probably get it on a floppy disk, or at least a 1,000-page book to build a nuclear device, and even the ballistic technology to use it. Not that I think the North Koreans have particularly good ballistic technology, but the fact that they have nuclear weapons, they cannot be invaded by ground forces, because then they just go, if they're losing, that's it. They blow everything up and everybody loses. And they may be more predisposed to killing their own guys. They may not have a problem with that, particularly in the Middle East. That's a definite thing with all the suicide bombers. But you may not want to believe this, you may not want to think it, but actually the Americans, I don't know why I pointed to my chest, I just did. I was expressing something. I wasn't talking about me in particular because I'm not American. But anyway, the thing is, our government doesn't actually want to send our guys off to die. This is real evident in World War II. Okay, it was a bit of a dick move by the Americans entering the war when the Germans were more or less starting to lose. They kind of sat on the fence and waited to see how things played out while our English allies were getting, not doing so well, when they could have helped out earlier and, maybe even ended the war sooner, with less bloodshed, and it could have been a lot more peaceful. But part of the rationale was they didn't know how things were going to turn out, and they didn't want to send, their guys off to be slaughtered. Because that's something I'm pissed off about with the Allied ground forces in Europe during World War II, particularly the Brits. The Brits didn't have a problem sending off their guys to die. Even the Germans, the Nazis, were less interested in sending their guys off to die. I'm not saying the same thing about World War I, because that's not true. The generals and people of power in World War I just didn't give a shit. They just, wanted to test new weapons and do this and that and switch money around and all this other kind of bullshit. But America has a long history of not actually wanting to send their guys off to die. And that's an admirable quality. Because one never knows how war is going to be. Sometimes war is like entering a dark room. You never know what's going to happen. And it's better to err on the side of caution. So this whole Iraq war that happened, it's a complicated issue. And it is more complicated than a pseudo-intellectual North American who does a simplistic job, whatever it is. You're a Starbucks barista, you're a parking maid, you're a librarian, whatever. It is more complicated than you think. And if you're some sort of keyboard warrior behind trolling Facebook pages, I mean, I do a little bit of that myself, but not in the same sense that other people do. I don't think that makes me smarter. I just want to be contradictory to other people who are putting shit up on Facebook. So, thing is, a lot of things. It was a very complicated situation going in Iraq, and Saddam Hussein would have been wise to invite the Americans into it, because we don't know exactly what went on. It's not like we got to see Iraqi news. It's not like we get to see Iraqi news today. You may go, well, I don't speak Iraqi. How am I supposed to know what's going on? You can tell by mannerisms. Just by the general theme. And that's assuming you don't have translations, of course, of what Iraqi news was like for years and years. It's a totally different world. I bet you. Search up Iraqi news predating George Bush's invasion of Iraq. You either won't find any, or you'll find the ones that is pre-approved by the government. You will never find, well, there most certainly is no chunk of information, chunk of news media, of any source actually. You can't even get a chunk of news media from our own news posted on the internet. The only way you get to watch it is if you actually sit through it in the morning to watch it. And nobody ain't got the time for that, man. You gotta go to work, you got things to do, you got chores to do, you just ain't got the time. And they do like to repeat themselves over and over again and bam home simplistic messages, so it gets boring to listen to after a while. But it would be nice to have even just a couple of days worth of Iraqi news media before the Iraq war started, in part with George Bush, but I also think with Saddam Hussein. And see, what was the general attitude of the their propaganda outlet to their public at the time? What was it? What was going on? Do we have these like little stories of like Squire Barnes talking about the sports? Do we have I don't know, someone else talking about, I don't know, a sandstorm that popped up because they don't get much snow over there, or this and that, the other. You know what I mean. What was it like over there? We don't know. I highly doubt they were promoting terrorist activities on their news outlets, their local news stations. I highly doubt that. But something else was going on over there. And I'm not going to sit here in my fancy chair and pretend I know exactly what's going on, because I don't. I'm offering a theory on what I believe. This is all stuff that the upper crust of society knows better than us, not because they're smarter, but because they get the filtered version. They get the core of the issue. And this can climb all the way up the ladder. Us regular folk, we don't get that. We get the boring, generic, stupid version of everything. And the people who are content with the boring, stupid version of everything, and then note that it's boring, stupid, and don't actually point it out for what it is, but try to go around it and pretend that they've discovered this big secret that our news outlets are stupid. And therefore, they've got an advantage over us. To me, that's the equivalent of taking out a pawn. And the problem is, everybody can do that. Now, do you want to go for a significant piece of the propaganda machine? Do you actually want to make an impact? Do you want to think something that the propaganda machine, the government, all these different agencies hadn't thought you could potentially figure out? The bigger picture. Now it's hard because you don't have a Wikipedia source to tell you what to think. You don't have a video on YouTube depicting exactly what you should think. Because a lot of people are sold off by video. Which reminds me of another point. The Saddam Hussein execution video, very, very not good. It was not shot in high definition video, for one thing. I hadn't actually watched it in a while. I probably should have watched it before I made this video. But my dad was telling me he had some sort of scarf around his throat. I saw it, and there were a lot of things that are questionable about it. And you go, no, man, I saw him being hung. That must be true. Well, you don't know that they didn't manipulate the video evidence. That's easy to do. Like, there used to be pictures 100 years ago of people in Australia and North America. I forget where it was. But this guy holding up a giant cricket in his hand, like a bug. And it was like a huge bug. Obviously, there aren't crickets that big. They're just not. But what they did was actually quite clever, is they took a picture of the cricket, made a cardboard cutout of that picture, and that's what the guy was holding. So it looked like he was holding a giant cricket. But those things don't exist. And you go, why would anybody do that? But in other parts of the world, where they don't have people coming into your country to observe things, they don't know. You tell them something, and it looks convincing, and they'll believe you. So, there was one general theme I was going for in this video, which was the obvious one, which is I don't think Saddam Hussein is dead. I think the Iraq War was orchestrated by him, Tony Blair, George Bush, and maybe other parties too, probably other parties. I think that did happen. And I think, well, Saddam Hussein's getting kind of old now. I mean, the last public pictures of him, he had white in his beard, and he was getting older. So, I mean, the thing is, I think when he actually dies, I mean, he could die of a heart attack tomorrow, and they'll just not tell us. They'll just keep on with the narrative that he was hung X amount of years ago. I don't even remember what year he was hung. I can't be bothered with such trivial information because I just don't agree with it. I don't believe its authenticity that much. I watched my fair amount of CSI and all that sort of shows. I know this information can be manipulated. Well, anyway, I'm running out of time before I have to head out the door. So I'm going to end this video now. I will probably pick back up on this topic later. I may have briefly mentioned something along these lines before. I don't, as I said, but I know I've definitely said this before. I don't actually go back and watch the videos that I've made before. If at the end of the video I'm satisfied with its quality, then I put it up and I don't watch it again. So I don't always remember if I've already said something or not. Whatever. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Have a good one.